we go.
Are we rolling?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning here. The heart of Cherokee County. Diamond Head Resort. The finest resorts on the river. Illinois River, that is. Well, I'm David Teegarden Jr. My father's David Teegarden. Kind of one of the original cast members of the Tulsa Sound, if you will. Oscar J here has asked me, what is the Tulsa Sound? And I'll start with, the words, out of the mouth of J.J. Cale and Leon Russell. People would throw that term around a lot, and they would kind of poo-poo it a little bit. They were like, well, yeah, what is the Tulsa Sound? There's no such thing. It's just, But it turns out there kind of is something, something about the Tulsa Sound. And of course they later, got their story straight. And I kind of think it's real similar with a lot of musical styles that have developed in the 50s and 60s. Real similar deal to like Bob Marley and reggae. These people didn't start off going for this particular sound. They were actually trying to do something else. Bob Marley and those guys, they thought they were Motown. Oh, we're not reggae. We're recreating Motown here. I think a lot of these early Tulsa cats that were playing were influenced by gospel music, blues music, rock and roll, country, and I think a lot of them, when they were younger, were really intrigued with R&B, Memphis style, Stax. So I think they were kind of going, we're R&B. And then they started playing for a while, and they were like, well, we thought we were recreating R&B, but it's turned into something different. And that in a nutshell, I think is where the nucleus of that lies. Just trying to recreate some sounds that you heard when you were a kid, and nobody can exactly recreate, we're not parrots. We just morphed into a thing. And so you had all these wonderful Tulsa musicians who, by default, I'll say, Jimmy Karstein said, he was like, well, how did you make it? How'd you do it? He's like, hell, there was only a handful of us anyway, Nobody wanted to do it, or nobody could do it. So by default,
yeah,
they're getting all the gigs. But there was a handful of Tulsa people that went out to California, went out to New York City, and they just kind of were so unique and they were such wonderfully talented musicians that they just got the gigs,
Yeah, absolutely. So I once heard you say that the Tulsa Sound is sometimes defined by a drum beat. Could you tell us about that drum beat?
Oh, I could feel it better than I could tell you about it. Great organist, Jim Downing, who is a eloquent writer as well. I think I wrote I read something he wrote when I was a kid. And to quote Jim Downing, to paraphrase Jim Downing, he said it has something to do with the powwow drums and the oil derricks.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Powwow drums and the oil derricks, and so
the oil derrick had a cadence,
yes,
or a tempo, and it's a little bit lopsided. It would be on and then get behind a little bit, and then get on and get behind a little bit.
So would you say that's the inspiration for the Tulsa Shuffle, possibly?
Well, I don't know if it's the inspiration, but Tulsa is always has been a big blues R&B town.
Tell us about the Tulsa
it's-
Shuffle.
Yeah, well, it's a shuffle. It's from Tulsa.
And
Tulsa
it's
Shuffle.
And it's defined. How is it different from like a Texas Shuffle or a Memphis Shuffle?
Oh, it's a little simpler, a little bit behind, and that's what makes it real hard. You know? We're pretty simple here in Tulsa. We're simple people.
The Tulsa sound is something that's been described to me as something that's effortlessly cool. And
Yeah,
I love
it
that.
appears that way.
It appears that
you know,
way.
It ain't easy. None of this is easy. I remember somebody said, "Oh, Markham, it comes so easy to you." And Jimmy Markham was like, "Hell, Louie's hard." I mean, just the odds of the universe coming together and spewing out Louie by the King, that's a feat unto itself.
That's true.
Let alone, some complex music. But
Markham played his fair share of standards. That guy played more standards than he ever played blues songs. As a matter,
it was just a song and dance man.
Yeah, and it was the way it had to be back then. Those guys played songs that were standards and got their chops up that way.
Sure.
Absolutely.
He's a dude.
So yeah, the Tulsa Shuffle, the Tulsa Sound. Dave, I want to thank you for this interview. I love you with all my heart, man. We've been friends for 30 years. Thank you,
Very
Dave.
much welcome.
And check out Dave. He's playing around town. He's playing with Ronnie Pyle in the area. He's playing with lots of folks. Go out and see him. It's All Sound Podcast. Subscribe now.
Night, night.